I remember there was a time when I was in Haiti and we were teaching one of these classes, and this woman stood up, and she had, I think, 4 or 5 children of her own at the time. And she stood up and she was pretty angry. And she said, "Why has nobody taught me this? This can end poverty." She recognized that this could have solved so many problems in her own life as well as the community around her, that as they learn that, they gain the education, they don't have to traffic their kids. They're not even put in that situation where it would even be an option to need to do that.
I had an opportunity to go to Haiti. I was going for a completely different reason. I was actually going over to teach about health and their bodies. I ended up going to a lot of orphanages, and I noticed something. After a few years, I started to see children who had living parents. In fact, I noticed that 3 or 4 sometimes out of 5 children in the orphanages actually had living parents. And that was so odd to me. It struck me like, well, how can that happen? So as I began to inquire more, and I began to get to know people in the community, I started to ask. They were unaware. They were unaware that they ovulated. They were unaware that they had a choice when to conceive. Women were having children, 15 of them sometimes. And these were unplanned, unwanted pregnancies.
These young mothers would get pregnant, and they would, just as a solution, because they can't afford to feed them, they just go drop them off at the orphanage because they know that they'll be cared for. It wasn't because of some crazy circumstance that the parents are gone and there's no family to take care of them.
I started to ask myself, what if we just taught women about their bodies? What if they knew that there were only 6 days out of every month for the average woman that they could get pregnant?
Initially when we started, we did one class. We taught one class, and we'd go in and we'd take these bracelets with us. These bracelets is a lunar essential tracking system, and that's what LET stands for, where a woman can track her ovulation. She can track the first day of her period, and then the rest of these beads right here is safe days. If you know that you don't want a baby, these are the days that you can have intercourse and be okay. These days right here, when the beads change color, this is the days of ovulation, when you need to say no if you don't want to have a child. And so we are not in promotion of no families. I've got 6 kids myself, and we highly love families. We love children. We also want to promote having those children because they're wanted. We saw that there were these families that had 14, 15, 16 kids, and it just isn't sustainable. They don't have a means to actually support that many kids, and so they go into the system.
When I first started teaching about reproductive health and just fertility in general, I noticed right away that people weren't really paying attention. That wasn't their greatest focus. So imagine being really hungry or having a lot of needs, and somebody just comes up and just starts telling you about reproductive health. It's not quite as interesting as you might imagine. But when we look at the whole system, when we look at a person's life and what they're going through, we're going to find that working with the whole person is far better than only just a one and done class. It became a program that teaches about reproductive health, reproductive wellness, healthy mind, body, spirit, and environment. And how that has to do with trafficking is when these areas are neglected in people's lives, they tend to be more at risk for trafficking, poverty, and abuse. The LETS program was developed in the developing world, and of course we now work in the developed world, which is super helpful for us here in the States and in the developed world, because we actually have a lot of the same problems. Maybe they look different because we're not living in dirt floors and concrete huts over here, but we have the same statistics.
We teach some of the signs and some of the things of how do you recognize, here in a developed country, right? How do you recognize who may be trafficked? Because it's actually a bigger problem in the United States than it is in Haiti. We only hear about Haiti and the third world countries, right? So it's not really our problem. It is our problem.
It's in your neighborhood. It's in my neighborhood. It's happening in neighborhoods that are of high economic status. It's happening to the normal child.
Through Let's, we work on both ends, right? We're working in developing countries as well as here in the United States and other countries in Europe and places that are developed to be able to teach this reproductive education, because I believe it starts in our own homes. It can end a problem that we have in developed countries as well, as we teach our families. And then we go from there, we teach our families, right? And then we become advocates of our communities. And we can go teach this process, the Let's, the bracelets, and the whole reproductive system, and understanding their bodies and how they work and how to be respectful of them and respectful with other people. That goes into our communities. And can you see that reach, that once it's in a community, then you find more people that want to go share that information.
Maybe you feel like I did, that there's just not very much one person can do. But I want to tell you that an inspired thought leads to inspired action, and there is something that each of us can do. If we lock arms and we educate ourselves about our own bodies, and we teach our children, that is the first step of healing our planet. It is the very first step of instilling confidence, self-worth in our bodies and who we are and what we do.
When I first heard about Let's, I was honestly surprised at the simplicity of the solution. Sex trafficking is a really big topic and it feels really heavy, but I was really surprised at just how simple this was, that it's just education. And I think that education applies equally to men and women. For me as a man, understanding how a woman's body works allows me to respect her better and lets me communicate with her that when it's a no, and that's okay. And I just need to respect that.
With Let's, there's many ways you can be involved. You can become a member of the Let's Empowerment Club, where you get a bracelet and then someone else gets our fearless education, whether it's a woman, youth, or a couple. Become a financial donor. If you're not able to take physical action yet, but you want to be a part of this revolution and change the projection of where our societies are and protect our most vulnerable populations, you can give $10, $100, thousands of dollars, whatever you desire. Just know that your financial donation is going to support Let's to continue a cause that is larger than ourselves. Today, I invite you to take action. Go to letsempower.org and decide what is best to you.